exploring the bizarre. Your e-ticket ride into the world of the paranormal. Strap yourself in as we traverse the universe exploring the unexplained. UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology, as well as other dimensions. It's time to take back the night. Now, your electrifying hosts of Exploring the Bizarre, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
Tim! Wake up, wake up, wake up! I don't want to be stuck out here on the Extraterrestrial Highway all night. We have to get back to Vegas for the show, and I gotta go to the bathroom. What's gotten into you?
Right. Tim, I'm halfway here and halfway there. I'm entering another dimension of sight and sound.
You're what?
Our favorite paranormal researcher, Joshua P. Warren, says he had a time warp experience out near Area 51, and I want to try and duplicate the results of his experience. I knew all along that there was something really weird, some weird experiments at Area 51, and this proves it.
Well, if you're going to go off to another dimension, you better not stay long, as we have a show to do. Now, get your ass back in the car. I think I see some of those camo dudes heading in our direction. They're going to check us out or shoot us or whatever, so let's go.
Damn, and I was just getting into this. But, okay, I was about to enter the Twilight Zone, but I'll do it next weekend when all those big events go on out there near the Area 51. It's going to be quite a weekend, I think, between Vegas and the Little Alien Inn. Everybody will be swaying to the beat of God knows what, but that's the story we're going to find out tonight.
Well, there's been, I think, some confusion. The media has been reporting that everything's been canceled and everyone's been told to go home. But, you being the inquisitive type of person that you are, I found out that that's just a load of bull hockey.
Yeah, it's called research. It just goes to show you how much research actually goes on in this field. I'm afraid. Yeah, I made a couple of calls out to the Little Alien Inn. We had one of the first events out there. I think it was in 1993. We had Bill Cooper. We had a Skywatch, and we were on the TV and got quite a bit of media coverage. Got stopped by the sheriff's department. That all happens. You never can tell what's going to happen out there. But I checked at the Little Alien Inn, and sure enough, they said everything is a go. They've got plenty of room for campers, and they will have a fully stocked bar and lots of souvenirs, and the bands are set to play. In fact, I made contact with the main band. They're out in Los Angeles, and they said they're eager to play for the a crowd that shows up. And then, of course, there's going to be a conclave going on, I think, at several bars in and around Las Vegas itself. So there's going to be plenty to do. It's going to be a big weekend for the aliens, I suppose, yeah. If they're hiding out, they won't be hiding out too much longer, I suspect. So, Tim, how you been? What's going on with you? Tim, are you out there? My goodness, is anybody out there?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
I'm sorry. I thought Whack and Hut had perhaps taken you away to some underground bunker. But why don't you? We have a great guest on, a personal friend of mine, somebody I've known for quite a few years, and I'm eager to talk to him about his experience out at Area 51, or pretty darn close to it.
Right. Well, tonight our our one of our guests, but our first guest of the evening is Joshua P. Warren, and it's just it's fortuitous that we were able to get him for tonight's show, considering all the activity that's going to be going on in Nevada very soon. But Joshua is an investigator who pioneers the amazing relationship between the mind, energy, matter, and strange phenomena. He owns the Haunted Asheville Ghost Tours and the Asheville Mystery Museum and Laboratory in North Carolina, plus the new Creepy Vegas Ghost and UFO show in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, Josh is the author of over 20 best-selling books, including Use the Force, A Jedi's Guide to the Law of Attraction, and The Wishing Machine Workbook. He's appeared on numerous TV programs on the History Channel, Discovery, National Geographic, Animal Planet, Sci-Fi, TLC, and starred on the Travel Channel series Paranormal Paparazzi. Now, Warren travels the world investigating mysterious phenomena and has made the cover of a science journal in 2004 for lab experiments regarding energy fields in nature related to UFOs and the enigmatic Brown Mountain Light, something you know about, Tim. In the summer of 2018, Joshua made international news for discovering a time anomaly north of Las Vegas. So to see his mind-blowing photos and videos glimpsing into other realms, visit his website at joshuapwarren.com. So Joshua, great to have you with us tonight on Exploring the Bizarre.
Well, thank you, Tim. And Tim, it is always a pleasure to speak with you. And what an exciting and weird time we are exploring and living to see right now. So it's good for this conversation to transpire this evening.
Well, Josh, I've known you now for a couple of decades. We met for the first time in a swamp outside of Syracuse, or kind of a semi swamp. It was at a B movie festival. You were showing one of your movies, which I found rather entertaining, I must say. And we didn't know. We met in the bar a couple of times, but we didn't really know who each other was. I guess that's the best way of putting it. It wasn't until later that I discovered that you had written a book on haunted houses, I believe. And I said, well, this is a rather young a chap to be having, I think it was Simon Schuster as a publisher. And then, of course, I found out later on that you were the primary investigator for the Brown Mountain Lights, which is a show in itself. And you don't really want to get into that. Ghost lights, spook lights, earth lights, whatever, plasma, really weird stuff that comes up out of the ground and chases people around that seems to be under intelligent control. Now, Josh has been all over the place. He's, of course, like I say, in Asheville, North Carolina. He has his museum there, and he did a talk show that I think I was on probably more than any other program over the years. Speaking of strange, and then he went out to Puerto Rico for how many years were you in Puerto Rico there, John?
Well, I visited for about 15, but I spent over 5 years there living, investigating the Bermuda Triangle in general. Yeah. And obviously when Hurricane Maria hit, that sort of put an end to my ability to work there effectively.
Well, now, how did you make it out? I mean, Area 51, I don't think really had that much to do with you moving to Vegas. Is that right?
Well, I sensed that there was some moment about to occur where, the Pentagon or whatever people were involved with the government experimentation were on the verge of finally disclosing some things. And, one of the great things about my position is that I am independent. I don't work for any corporation. I'm not beholden to anyone. Nobody can fire me. And so, therefore, because of that independence, a lot of people trust me and they talk to me. And I've proven for the past 25, 26, 27 years here that I don't betray my sources. And I also don't go out there trying to badger the government or these folks who were involved with national security. So I'm in a good sort of balanced position to sort of get some insight on what's happening. And I knew some big things were about to occur here in this area, in this state. And for those who are listening who don't know this, Nevada is owned 86% by the government, more than any other state. And so it's funny because in Puerto Rico, it was kind of like I was on an island surrounded by water. And now here I'm on an island surrounded by desert and sand. It's a really it's a fun place, but it also is a place that is very easy to guard and barricade, and there are just vast swaths of the desert land where you won't find anything. I mean, you don't have a cell phone signal, you're not going to find a gas station for 2 hours, you're on your own out there, right? And so being here
let me this. I did have experience myself when I was out there in 1993. We had a conference at the Little Alien Inn, one of the locations this coming a week where some festivities will be taking place near Area 51, where I ran out of gas. You know, the people warned me, make sure, you know, you got a full tank before you leave Vegas, because there isn't a gas station for 60 or 90 miles. And for some reason I forgot, because I had a convertible. I had two pretty little girls, and we were sputtering and spitting, and came to a halt on the side of the road. If it wasn't for a kindly gentleman and his family who stopped and siphoned some gas for us, I would be a marshmallow today in the desert. So you got to take precautions. If you're going out there, you got to make sure that you got a full tank of gas. You got to make sure that you've got plenty of water to drink, and that your tires are not going to flood on you, because I don't know if AAA will come out and pick you up, John.
Well, you have to get in touch with AAA somehow. And, you know, this is, I think, one of the most significant things that we can get into tonight, given where we are historically here. So I am in this position where I have information coming at me from all over the place, and I am not going to personally go to Area 51 because, for one thing, I mean, I've been there before, but in this particular case, I mean, I have friends who are going to go there and tell me what happened and correspond with me. But here's what I have been doing. I've been keeping tabs on how this is being handled by the government and by the local and the mainstream media. And I have to tell you both, and this is in all honesty now, I have a lot of friends in the media around here, and they've been very kind to me, and I have been on the television numerous times just over the past year and a half here. And without naming any names or being too specific, I want you to know that I believe there has been a concerted endeavor in order to tell the media, stop talking about this, that by simply talking about it, it's going to encourage it. And the reasonable explanation is, well, look, people don't realize how remote this is. It could be a humanitarian disaster if we have all of these people who get out there and they don't properly prepare. And that's a very valid point. But it's also a convenient point, because when you decided to release this book called Area 51, Warning, Keep Out, you and I had talked, Tim, about what kind of media response we were going to get as we got closer and closer to September 20th. And it sure does seem, does it not, like something has happened here to squash this conversation that was so hot about a month ago.
Yes, because I think to some degree it has a lot to do with the confusion as to what exactly is going to go on. It seems like some people, in fact, some of those that are responsible for having even gotten the ball rolling on this, have been sending out mixed messages and have told people that the event is going to be canceled and that they are the only event in town, which will be held in Las Vegas proper. And that's just not the the case. Now, it kind of reminds me of Woodstock in a sense, because the people that live in Rachel are worried that the people are going to come out there and ruin their lawns. They have no lawns, Josh. I mean, let's face it. It's all rock and rubble and stubble and a few stray creatures that wander across the highway there. There is, of course, besides the little alien inn, I believe there is the Extraterrestrial Highway. You got a couple of signs up there. In fact, in the book Area 51 Warning Keep Out, we got a nice photo of you standing under the highway sign. So I'm not too worried. I mean, people, I think, realize by now what the circumstances are, and there'll be enough people on the highway this time, at least, that if something happens, I'm sure somebody will have a little gas or some water or something. So I think that's being used, as you say, as a convenience to get people not to come out there, because, frankly, it seems like the sheriff, the Lincoln County the police, just don't like people, that coming out there and barging in. I don't think, if you ask me now, Josh, is anything going on at Area 51? I would say probably not for the last couple of years. The aliens have all packed their bags and gone off somewhere else, and probably the military is carrying on whatever they're doing either further out in the desert or somewhere else altogether. There are these so-called secret bases all over the world. I mean, they're not just Area 51. There's one in England that we've written about in the book. There's, of course, Pine Gap in Australia. Even the Russians have their own place where they are testing back-engineered technology or keeping an alien or two sitting around there. I don't know. I mean, what's your take on this? Do you think anything is going on out there?
I certainly do, and I'll tell you why. I thought for years, well, everybody knows, so why would they still have anything happening there when you have Utah and Tonopah and these certain areas where you hear other stories about other bases? There are two things I want to share with you about this. Number one is Area 51, as we call it, was constructed primarily in the 50s and 60s when there was still quality work being done. And you can't just take that facility and lift it up overnight and put it somewhere else. This area is too perfect, it's too protected, it's too secure, and I don't think that there's any need for them to do it. But secondly, people are still seeing and documenting things here that are incredible. And I want to tell you, before we go to the break, this is for you and Tim and all the listeners. I want you to see a brand new piece of video footage that lasts 1 minute that I'm calling the Vegas Tic-Tac-Toe UFO. Or actually, I guess it's the Tic-Tac UFO. I don't need the toe in there. The Vegas Tic-Tac UFO. And basically, this was shot by my friend Steve Barone, who is an investigator here. I know him well, and I can tell you more about him after the break. But basically, I want you to see this because I want us to discuss it. This was shot weeks ago. Okay, so this is not some kind of old thing. I believe this is an example of an alien technology that's still zipping around here, because there's no way the government would be taking a projectile like this and firing it around a highly populated place like Las Vegas. If you go to joshuapwarren.com, there's no period after the P. Go to joshuapwarren.com. Yes, I'm a businessman. You have to click the link to my curiosity shop. It's right there at the menu at the top. But when you scroll down to the bottom, I just posted this yesterday or the day before, you will see this 1 minute edited video. And the funny thing is, there's a ball of light that Steve Barone was filming from his deck. And he goes out almost every night. He's retired, and he just films. And that's all. And as he's filming, you see this tic-tac, maybe it's a cigar-shaped object that fires from right to left across the stream or across the screen, and streaming behind it is some kind of very visible propelling energy. And this is not a bug. This is not dust. This is not some, moisture. I mean, I study this stuff all the time. And this is a structured luminescent cylinder that is going by at a great rate of speed with this, again, propelling energy, almost like a plasma, which you can clearly see behind it. So I want you to look at that, and we can talk more about the context of that. But the reason I bring this up is these things are still flying around here. People are still seeing them. People are still documenting them as long as they're looking up instead of looking at their cell phones, which is how 70% of the people are these days. And I guarantee you that Area 51 is still an active base. It is not Disneyland, which is why that people shouldn't think they should just jump in the car and let's go have a big party there. This is a place that is possibly more active than ever because that it now has become more. It has become more difficult than ever to reproduce things secretly that we were able to produce in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s.
So now you're convinced that this is extraterrestrial instead of reverse engineered?
That's right. And the reason I say that is I don't think something traveling at this rate of speed would be shot around this area, which is so populated with tourism. You got helicopters, planes, drones. I mean, this would be a disaster if something traveling at this rate of speed hit any of those things. They're not going to do that. Why would you do that? This is an extraterrestrially or interdimensionally controlled object because it's able to, for one thing, be rather compact, travel this way in this area, and navigate in such an extraordinary manner. So I just that alone makes me think we're not looking at something that's been back engineered. We're looking at the genuine article here.
Now where will okay? So people go to your website, joshuapwarren.com, and in fact, I'm right there now. What would they click on?
At the menu at the top, it says Curiosity Shop. That's where I have all my strange wares and little odd things that you're not going to find anywhere else on the internet that I sell. And if you scroll down to the bottom of that page, you'll see I just posted this 1-minute video. And it's, when you watch this thing, first off, you're going to see it repeated a few times, and then you're going to see it slowed down. And, over the years, back in the day, I knew that rods were a bunch of bull and all that. This is a tic-tac UFO zipping across Las Vegas. It's the real deal. You can see the stream of what may even be plasma behind it, which is propelling it forward. And it's funny because when my friend Steve was out there videotaping, he was just focused on that ball of light, which I don't even know what that is either, frankly. But then this thing goes shooting by, and I just finished filming something with the Discovery Channel, a show that comes out later this year called Rob Riggle, Global Investigator. Rob Riggle is a comedic actor who's the host of this new show where he's out exploring mysteries. But the thing about Rob Riggle is, in reality, he's a retired lieutenant colonel in the Marines. He saw active duty. He's decorated. I sat down with him and watched this, and he couldn't explain it either.
All right, gentlemen, let me interrupt you here because we have about 30 seconds before we have to go to our break. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Joshua P. Warren on Exploring the Bizarre. Stay tuned.
Now back to Exploring the Bizarre with two of the most electrifying researchers in the paranormal, your hosts, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
Welcome back to Exploring the Bizarre. I'm Tim Swartz. Tonight we're talking with Joshua P. Warren. A little bit later in the show, we're going to bring in Paul Dale Roberts to join us and continue our conversation about Area 51. So, Joshua, now continuing our conversation before our break about this amazing UFO video that you've got on your website, why don't you give our listeners a little bit of an idea of where this video was shot, what what direction the camera was pointing, that sort of thing.
Okay, so this gentleman, Steve Barone, he lives on the edge of what's called the Red Rock Canyon. So basically what that means is Las Vegas is in a valley, and the valley, of course, the strip as we know it, runs from north to south. It's surrounded by these very tall mountains up to 12,000 feet high. And on the western side, you have the Red Rock Canyon. That is where Steve Barone has his deck, where he goes out at night and he films things with his cameras. Now, when I first met him, it was because I was introduced to him by a producer. And I went over to his house with Murray the Magician, who you've probably seen on TV. Murray the Magician has a show at the Tropicana here on the Vegas Strip. And we tried to fool Steve Barone. So Murray went out, and we documented this with a film crew. Murray flew up a drone, and he's a magician, you know, and he made the drone do all these weird things, and Steve identified it as a drone. And then Murray sent up Chinese lanterns, and those were identified. And we did 2 or 3 things, and when I was there, what I can tell you about my personal presence, Steve Barone was able to differentiate between drones, helicopters, Chinese lanterns, airplanes, etc. So the guy goes out every night, and he has debunked some of his own videos. And I mean, as a matter of fact, there was one video that I used to show in the Creepy Vegas Ghost and UFO show, and he came out to me later and said, "I've figured out that actually was not what I thought it was." So he goes out and he films this stuff. And so what we are seeing here, and I saw the raw footage before and after. Again, I've sat there with a number of people and analyzed this. And what you're seeing is looking from west to east across the Las Vegas Strip from his position on the Red Rock Canyon. There again is this ball of light, and we have this, call it a cigar shape, call it a tic-tac, whatever, that goes zipping from right to left. And it has a nice structure to it. I mean, he slows it down a little bit, and some of his videos are sped up so you can see what he's talking about in terms of the direction these things can be going. In this case, it's slowed down in order to see this tic-tac object speeding, and what I think is most amazing is that little plume that comes off the back of it. So now, how do we explain something like this? I mean, what is that? You guys, you've seen, you've been documenting this stuff for decades. How would you explain that?
Well, now let me ask you this, Josh. Has he taken anything in the daytime?
I don't know how much he has or has not gone out during the day. I know he likes to use light-sensitive cameras, and you know, here's one of the things you have to understand. If I take out a flashlight and I shine it in your direction in broad daylight, I'm going to be lucky if you notice it. But if I shine that flashlight at you when it's dark, it stands out. What we're talking about here is the distinction, right? We're talking about the definition. And so I can see why, yes, there are people who see UFOs during the day and document them during the day, but I think it's much more likely that they stand out at night.
Well, now, what is it, do you think, about that area that seems to attract UFOs? Now, of course, you know, some people say, oh, well, you know, it's because they're based at Area 51. But do you think that's the case, or do you think there's something else going on?
Well, this state, Nevada, is known as the Silver State, but it also has a lot of gold. I mean, this whole place, you know, on the surface, it looks like, it's just barren wasteland, right? But no, you go down below, and we have some of the richest minerals in the world, and minerals that are highly conductive, and minerals that create these bizarre electromagnetic anomalies. And, you know, right next door, we have Arizona. They call it the Copper State. We have a ton of stuff happening in Arizona. So I believe that there is some element. Well, maybe I shouldn't use that word because it's a little too convenient. But there's some characteristic of this part of planet Earth that makes it especially conducive to these strange electromagnetic fields that we associate with all paranormal phenomena, but especially maybe guidance systems that could be used from or by these beings. That there are certain highways, certain latitudes, certain avenues that sort of stand out when this planet's being traversed by these other intelligences. And so places like Nevada may have naturally attracted these beings because of its composition. And of course, it's like the line from the Mothman prophecies, you notice them and they notice that you notice them. And so suddenly we have this evolution where more and more strange stuff has happened here over the years. And then the U.S. military, they took notice of that and saw, well, this is a perfect place to create a secret base. And it was just the right combination of factors that came together here for Nevada compared to what's happened in the rest of our country.
Now, Joshua, you on the cover of our book, the Area 51 Warning Keep Out, we have a special blurb, actually, where we state that you had a time warp experience out near Area 51. And several people have gotten in touch with me and said, well, geez, have Joshua tell that story on the air because it is a personal experience. What exactly happened to you in relation to time warps?
Well, I came here to Nevada for many reasons. For one thing, I do get a lot of work in television, and I have 2 shows that'll be coming out soon, for example, and I don't want to live in Los Angeles. And so Las Vegas seemed like a really cool place because my wife and I don't have any kids, and we can go out and enjoy all the entertainment here. You don't have to worry about, flooding and hurricanes. You got to remember, I just finished dealing with a hurricane in Puerto Rico. And so there were a lot of things that made me attracted to come here. But when I came here, I was just looking for a good excuse to make that drive to Area 51. And so it was fortuitous when I got contacted by a Silicon Valley engineer named Ronald Heath. And Ronald Heath had been following my work for years. And he said, I have created a device for the guy who has every other device, every other meter in the world. I said, you have my attention. So basically, Ronald Heath was a fan of the X-Files, and there was an episode of the X-Files where Mulder takes 2 stopwatches and he synchronizes them, and then he leaves one at his car, and he takes the other to a UFO hotspot, and then when he compares them later, they're out of sync. So the implication is there was some kind of gravity, i.e. space-time distorting technology that may have been used at the UFO hotspot. So Ronald Heath decided to make the first user-friendly device that would duplicate this. So his device, called the Differential Time Rate Meter, or DT meter, has a sensor and a display. So basically, the display looks like a calculator screen, 0.00000 for 8 decimal points. And then you have a sensor, and they're connected by a 100-foot cable. And each of these things, the display unit and the sensor, have an identical quartz crystal in them, and that crystal is oscillating at about 1 million times per second. Okay, that's basically what this thing is going for. And so he said these things should always stay in sync, but we'll give them a margin of error as well, a very healthy margin of error, just in case there might be some electrical problem or some. So long story short, within this margin of error, these things should always stay in sync because you're not supposed to have a difference between the two in the span of 100 feet here on planet Earth unless something major is happening, like a black hole is approaching or something like that. So that said, he asked me if I wanted to be the first person to go take one of these into the field, and I said, well, heck yeah, because Area 51 is a place where people claim there is technology being experimented with or back engineered or whatever that distorts gravity and space-time. I sat right there in front of Bob Lazar in person in 2015, and I had him talk about how that he was working on stuff that was distorting space-time. Now, look, I know there are plenty of reasons not to buy Bob Lazar's story, but I've talked to a lot of people just like you guys have, and I think there may be some truth to it. So therefore, I thought, well, okay, if this place, Area 51, is experimenting on a grand scale, let me take this DT meter there, and every 20 miles on the way there and back, I'll stop in the desert and get a control, get a baseline. The idea was that maybe it'll be normal up until I get to Area 51, and then all of a sudden I get some kind of weird reading. Well, so I did that. I went out there, I stayed overnight, I came back, I took my readings every 20 miles, and the funny thing is, around Area 51, everything was normal. However, there was this one site approximately 20 miles north of Las Vegas, this nondescript area on the side of the road, where I got, according to the DT meter, the one and only anomaly I've ever gotten with the DT meter. And I've used this thing under extreme circumstances and lightning and thunderstorms, and when it's 115 degrees and when it's snowing. I've used it in all kinds of situations. I got a reading that indicated that time had slowed down by 25 microseconds per second. So what that means is, if you take a second and you slice it up into 100,000 little pieces, 25 of those slowed down. Now, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's not supposed to happen. But the biggest thing was, I found out after the fact that this is an area where not only a lot of people have gotten strange footage, but also had full-blown close encounters. There's a man named Sean Kevin Jason who had a full-blown close encounter there. I went with him in person back out to the site on camera, and he said, yes, this is where this happened in 1996, and he told me all about it. And he's not the only one. So I thought to myself, well, what are the chances that this spot on the way to Area 51, for whatever reason, is where I got this anomaly on the DT meter? And Ronald Heath is ecstatic. He says that's amazing because he's been trying to get an anomaly for months, at that point for months, and he'd been logging his data 24/7, never gotten anything. I got that. Turns out to be a UFO hotspot. So we dig into this question. Well, what's going on here? Is this because an alien and a spacecraft was flying overhead at the time? Is this because the government was doing an experiment at the time? Is this because that there's something natural here that relates to what I just said about the composition of the land that creates these anomalies? This is a very complex subject that we could dig into for hours, but I do find it intriguing that, in fact, that month when I was doing my research, apparently the U.S. government was experimenting with some kind of a new quote-unquote nuclear weapon that was being tested in the vicinity. Now, that's not supposed to change space-time, but it's another example of how what I got may have been this serendipitous moment when they were doing some kind of experimentation with this alien technology as I was out there taking measurements. But the last thing I want to say, and I know I'm being a little long-winded here, but the last thing I want to say is I'm not the only person who has captured this kind of thing. I was apparently the first person to capture this as a civilian, but shortly thereafter that, David Paulides was on the History Channel with a show called Vanished, and he had a group of bona fide rocket scientists with their PhDs out there at Mesa Verde in Colorado at a site where people would disappear. And they used a completely separate system with lasers and prisms. And they said they also found a time anomaly. So I predict that these things, whether natural or artificial, are strewn all around our planet. And eventually we're going to be able to connect the dots overlay them with places where people experience the paranormal, and we will find a connection that will give us insight into why and how all of these things occur.
Tim, it makes me wonder if maybe that wasn't the same location or close by to where Paul Sands had his close encounter.
Well, there have been quite a number of people, and we documented as much as possible. Talk about it in the in our book. People that went out to Area 51 and had some sort of experience there. There was a fellow visiting from England who claims that he had missing time, and he woke up with his wife, or came to with his wife, and they ended up in a trailer park. They don't know how they got there or what they were doing there. And also he claims that they were abducted by, well, he thought at first that they were aliens or extraterrestrials, but he figured out later on that they were really the U.S. Military in the skies, as part of what do they call it, MK Ultra, the program. And a lot of these alien bases that we talk about, or these military bases that we speak of, they are supposed to, continue underground. They have all sorts of underground tunnels and chambers and bunkers, some of which are supposedly occupied by these extraterrestrial beings, according to John Lear and some of the other folks who have been involved in making statements about Area 51 or have been out there and had sightings and experiences. The government some years ago actually made a treaty, or came up with a treaty with some of these beings, a group of Greys, perhaps, and there have been all kinds of things that have been reported out there that would seem to perhaps justify some of this thinking.
Mm-hmm. Well, Josh, I would just say, sometime I hope that you take this device to some haunted locations, places that are like really haunted, high poltergeist activity or whatever, to see if you get any kind of results in a location like that.
Well, you're right, Tim, because that is exactly what needs to happen. I need to take this and anything that spins off from this to places where people have psychic experiences. They see cryptids, they see ghosts, they see UFOs, they have time slips. And of course, I can't do it all myself. So it's nice to know there are people who are learning about this. They're listening to your program right now. They're learning that this exists. And eventually we'll have enough people out there gathering data that we'll start getting it done. And, before we have to wrap up this hour, I just want to also make this point, and I think it's a very important one. Anybody who's listening tonight who is interested in Area 51 may find this whole thing very confusing. It's a hall of mirrors. You can't even trust what the media is telling you, and that should make sense. But what I can say is, in my opinion, in my life, and being right here at this time in history, if you really want to get the most honest sense, the most honest taste of what is actually happening at Area 51, you have to buy this book, Area 51, Warning, Keep Out. And as you both know, I'm not making any money off of this. I'm just telling you that. I was happy and honored to be a contributor. And, it's unbelievably accessible and affordable on Amazon. And so, if somebody really wants to know what's going on, you have the best experts in the world here all put together. Absolutely. And they're very candid. So get that book.
We had to up the price. I was losing $1.25 at every book that I sold for $10.
Yeah,
I'm a terrific publisher, gentleman publisher. That's what I am. But even now, it's as reasonable as you can get. Well, now, what exactly you're doing? You do a show out there in Vegas, a UFO
Yeah, it's called the Creepy Vegas Ghost and UFO Show. There's nothing like it in the world. I bill it as 60 fun paranormal minutes in a bar. There's this bar here. It's called Millennium Fandom. It's in a great location because it's in downtown Vegas. It's right near Zach Bagans' Haunted Museum and the Pawn Stars shop. You know, everybody knows the Pawn Stars TV show. And so it's a pop culture bar where they do cosplay. They have movie relics and movie reproductions, and I mean, it's just a really nice. It's like a really clean, classy, cool, slick, sophisticated place. And they have this area called the Gallery, and we have a huge screen there. So every Saturday at 7 p.m., we have this 60-minute show where you get to see the best evidence we've got for ghosts, UFOs, cryptid, psychic phenomena, not just around Nevada, but also other places as well. And I'm there as often as possible, but even when I can't be there, I hired local Nick Weird to be the host. So if anybody's interested, go to creepyvegas.com, creepyvegas.com. I don't know if we're going to take a break from doing this for a while, but currently you can go to creepyvegas.com and sign up for the rest of the year on any Saturday.
So, well, we must again tell people who are planning to go out there to Area 51 to heed the warnings and make sure that you have taken all the necessary precautions. You got a full tank of gas, and you got plenty of water, and you got air in your tires, and have a good time above all else. And don't storm the damn base. Don't take a chance, because the least that is going to happen is they're going to arrest your ass, and you're going to spend the night in jail and get fined $600. And there's a lot better things that you can do with that money, like order a bunch of books from us. That's what I would say. Anyway, Josh, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. You've got you've had a fascinating career, and I'm glad I've known you for all this time, and we've remained friends, and look forward to your next exploit. You got any books coming out of your own?
No, actually, I'm working on some research projects right now, and that's sort of what I'm focusing on. And I think I may have some interesting stuff to tell you about soon. But Tim, look, you're a wonderful guy. Tim, you're a wonderful guy, and thank you both for having me on. And you're doing great work.
You have a great insight into Area 51, and we'll talk to you when this is all over.
All right, stay tuned. Paul Roberts coming up next.
Exploring the bizarre. Your e-ticket ride into the world of the paranormal. Strap yourself in as we traverse the universe, exploring the unexplained. UFOs, ghosts, lost worlds, cryptozoology, as well as other dimensions. It's time to take back the night. Now, your electrifying hosts of Exploring the Bizarre, Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz.
All right, welcome back to more Exploring the Bizarre. We're having so much fun tonight talking about Area 51 that we decided to go for another segment. And Tim, we've got another great guest with us, and an old friend who's been on the show before, Paul Dale Roberts.
And a contributor to the... How you doing? Yes, and a contributor to the Area 51 Morning Keep Out book. Some of the things that happened to him out near Area 51 that we're going to find out about. But, Paul, for the people who have not heard you on the show before, give us just a brief rundown about how you got into the paranormal, because you're one of the main personalities today on the scene. You probably do more writing and more research than any person that I know that's active in the field.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you, Tim and Timothy and everybody else. But I got into the field because I lived in a haunted house in Effie Street in Fresno. All kinds of terrible things were happening to me. And as I got older, I was thinking, well, was that childhood nightmares, or did I really witness the paranormal? So what happened was, from there, I just started reading a lot of books, things by Brad Steiger, Eric von Däniken. I started getting into UFOs and got into military intelligence. And one of the things that I did when I went into military intelligence is I said, if anyone knows if UFOs is a real phenomenon, it would be military intelligence. So I was a 97 Bravo intelligence analyst, and on one particular day, 6 photographs came in, and those 6 photographs represented reconnaissance aerial photos by our satellites. And on those 6 photos were different type of UFOs, cigar-shaped one, disc-shaped, et cetera, et cetera. And they represented, each photo represented a full-length video, which I did not see. And on the back of each photo, it said intelligent movement. And at that point in time, I said, wow, okay, our military intelligence is still investigating UFOs. Even though Project Blue Book's been closed down, military intelligence is still looking into it. And those photographs went to the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, and from there to CIA and into a black hole because I never heard about them again. And the only thing I did with the photographs was give them a number. And little did I know from there, with military intelligence and in my time in the service before, from 73 to 76, I was working with CID, Criminal Investigation Division, Drug Suppression Team in Germany. And 79 to 86, I was with military intelligence. Later on, I got an H identifier, and which is instructor qualified, and I was teaching the Soviet threat, but OPFOR opposing forces. So with all that happening for me, I came across a ghost hunter, and she says, Paul, you ought to join us and write a story about our investigation. So I did, and that first article that I wrote was published in some magazine in England, and they kept me, and they said, well, write more stories. And before I knew it, the owner of that paranormal group, HPI, she quit, and I am now the owner of it, along with my wife, Deanna Jackson Stinson, and we're still going strong.
All right. So in our book, Area 51, Warning, Keep Out, you have a really excellent chapter concerning your travels to that area. So why don't you tell us about why you decided to go out there in the first place?
The reason why I wanted to go out there was to talk to the people. And you can learn so much just by talking to residents of Rachel, Nevada. And one of the ladies that worked at the Alien, I don't know if she still works there or not, but she told me that at one point in time, living out there, she saw this craft. And inside the craft was a human occupant, a pilot. And it came eye level to her. It was hovering. It wasn't making any noise. And he waved at her and took off. And I thought that was an amazing story. And she had a person who actually backed up her story, said that he actually saw it as it came eye level to her. So with that, and when we got there, the people at the Alien, they were so nice. They let us camp out in the parking lot, and they actually took us to an abandoned village near Area 51, and the people that used to live in those homes worked at Area 51. And why the village is abandoned, they didn't know, but they were saying that the place was haunted. So we actually did an investigation over there, got some EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon, and we did a night watch, and 3 of the investigators said that they saw what was considered as starlight UFOs that were moving erratically in the sky. I didn't see them. I was busy talking to other people. We got to the back gate the next day, and off in the hillside, I could see a guy looking at me with binoculars, and I was looking at him with binoculars. And before I knew it, he was taking off this rifle from his backside and pointing it towards me. And it looked like what I consider a sniper rifle. And I said, okay, they're really serious. I don't like guns pointed at me.
How close were you to I say the gate? There isn't really a gate there. It's kind of like a line in the sand and a sign or two that says no, trespassing if force can be used. How close were you to going over that line?
I was pretty close. I was snapping a lot of photos. I would say I was about 3 feet in front of the line. And the sniper, he was about 300 yards away from me. Mm. And I was checking everything out with binoculars, taking a lot of photos. And that's when he pointed his rifle towards me. And I said, I think it's time for us to go. And then later on, as we were going down the road, there was a Jeep over on parallel from us, and you could see the dust that it was making as it was going on our side as we were headed out. So it was sort of unnerving, So
they have the private agency. It's not it's kind of strange that the military doesn't guard the Area 51. They've hired a private security agency. Wackenhut, indeed, Wackenhut. In fact, right here in Manhattan, they do the security for private businesses and stuff. And every once in a while, I'll see a little a car. I guess that's what you would describe it. Like a one-seater rolling down the street. It'll say Wackenhut on the side. I once asked one of the security people. I said, "You know anything about any aliens?" And at first, he kind of just looked at me like, "What are you, crazy or something?" Then I guess he caught on and kind of just smiled and got back into his little go-kart and took off. But there have been you talk about people there that work at the Little Alien Inn. Pat, who's been the owner for 31 years, she told me, and I got a quote here that I take right out of the book. She said, "We felt their presence around here. One day after we had locked up the bar, a beam of light shot through the closed door, and we could sense that something had entered here. We told them out loud that they were welcome to anything we had as long as they came in peace. We don't feel that they meant us any harm at all." So you've got, again, this dichotomy of good guys versus bad guys, because supposedly, from what we hear, there's some fairly negative forces working around the base, but not necessarily some of the things that have happened to people there. It's been a little bit of both positive and a little bit of negative. Now, did you have a sighting while you were out there?
We did a night watch, and we were up all night. And 3 of the investigators, I was talking to somebody in the alien, so I did not witness it. But I heard them like screaming, and so I ran outside and I go, "What was it? What was it?" And they claimed that they saw 3 starlight type UFOs that were moving erratically. And now, when we went to the gate, one of the investigators, and I don't know, I sort of had a hard time believing it, but she says as the Jeep was following us on our side, she said above the hill there was a UFO that came up and then went back down. and nobody else saw it. She was the only one that saw it. So it was kind of questionable. It's like, I didn't see it. But
your wife, who is a very good psychic and is sensitive, has she picked up anything like vibration wise? I mean, does she think that there's aliens out there, or is the government doing a reverse technology, reverse engineering?
Now, my wife has never been to Area 51, but she does. Yeah, she does have the. When I went to Area 51, I didn't even know her then, but she has the power, I would say, to uncloak UFOs, because right here in our town of Elk Grove, where we're going right down the road, and she goes, pull into the parking lot, and I go, why? She goes, don't ask me why, just pull into the parking lot. I said, okay. So I pull into the parking lot. She goes, there's something in the sky right there. And I'm looking in the sky. I don't see nothing. And she doesn't see anything. And she takes her camera. She snaps the photo. And that's where she gets 3 disc-shaped UFOs glowing in V formation. And that picture was actually, I actually submitted it to MUFON, and they were unable to dispute it. And 14 Times actually did a full write-up on her and actually published that photo in 14 Times. So that was totally amazing. And she's done some other incredible stuff with UFOs because, as a child, she says that she was abducted. And that's how she gained her psychic powers. She can see ghosts and stuff like that. And she does, I feel she does have that ability to uncloak UFOs. And I would love to take her to Area 51, but now, with all the publicity going on with Area 51, I mean, there's like rumors that they moved the base to either Utah or Colorado. So, if they're back engineering UFOs, it probably would be in Colorado or Utah, probably not Area 51 anymore.
Well, it's quite, people think that they're going to, if they storm the base, they go past the guard post there, that they're going to find, aliens are sitting on beach chairs or something. And I don't think that's quite the way that it works. It's a huge, Tim, how many square miles is Area 51? We're really talking about the Groom Lake and S5 and all these other.
Well, I mean, it's part of the whole Nellis complex. I mean, so yeah, I mean, you're talking about just miles and miles and miles. First of all, open desert. And then, Area 51, Paradise Ranch, Groom Lake, whatever you'd want to call it, that's really just kind of like a small area within that. So if you would manage to get past, and I guess somebody, it was like either, I think it was yesterday, some tourists from Norway or Denmark or someplace like that. Now, somebody says that Area 51 is about 600 square miles. So, yeah, wow. if you do manage to evade Wackenhut and get over that line, you've got a lot of desert that you have to get through in order to get anywhere, but you'd never be able to get that far. I mean, there's helicopters, there's the pickup trucks, the SUVs, the grounds. There's sensory devices, there's cameras, there's microphones. They can see you coming for miles away.
And guards with guns.
Guards with guns. That's right. Well, and as Paul said. Yeah. That guy was, what'd you say, 300 feet, 300 yards away?
Yeah, 300 yards.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a good sniper. I mean, he could have gotten you with one eye closed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, easily.
And recently, Bob Lazar was saying that Area 51 itself, they don't back engineer UFOs. Only in S7, I believe it was S7, that they were back engineering UFOs. So, and you're talking, 600 miles of land. Most of that land is probably secretive military aircraft, but one location, which Bob Lazar worked at, S7, was where they had extraterrestrial aircraft that actually crash landed, and they were back engineering the UFOs.
Yeah, that area that Bob Lazar claimed that he worked at was S4, and S4, right, yeah, and I think that was supposed to be part of the what was it, the Papoose Lake complex, built, with like hangars, built to the side of the mountain there. So, and that's that's one of the things that makes the whole Area 51 story so intriguing. Is Lazar's story, which we've noted on this show before. I mean, he's told it all these years and really hasn't embellished on it, and has pretty much stuck to his guns that that he said it really happened to him. So.
Right. And there was one individual that I talked to at the Alien, and they said, well, this gentleman here used to work at Area 51. So I asked him, I said, the stories that Bob Lazar said, okay. And I asked him different questions. What did you see? What did you work on? Blah, blah. He didn't give me any answers. Mm-hmm. But he just looked at me, and he said one thing. And he said, Bob Lazar is correct. That's all I'm going to say. Bob Lazar is correct. And I said, can you elaborate on that? He goes, no. He goes, but I'm just going to let you know, Bob Lazar is correct. And you take it for what it's worth. I go, okay.
See, now, I have my own feeling on this. I think that these things didn't necessarily happen to Bob Lazar, but that he's fronting for someone, that someone has given him this information who does not want to go public with it, and they have found someone who's willing to take, let's say, some of the heat. Now, we have our own Area 51 whistleblower by the name of Commander X, who claims that he's actually worked out there in some of the experiments involving UFOs and teleportation, that he was actually invited, that's the word, inside one of these craft that were of off-world origin, and told to actually see if he could using mind power only, direct the craft and lift it off and fly it. And at first, he was totally unsuccessful. He had to try on 3 or 4 different occasions before he was able to get the craft to follow its direction. But apparently, there is no the propulsion is totally unknown. Apparently, they are able to drive these things through mind power. I mean, these beings, if they exist, certainly seem to be many years in advance of any technology that we have here. Anyway, I see that we're coming up on the end of the show here. And Paul, why did you tell our listeners where they can find out any information about the work that you do, your website, and so forth?
Oh, okay, sure. All you have to do is just Google my name, Paul Dale Roberts. You'll find a lot of our articles, or my wife, Deanna Jackson Stinson. And we do a lot of our paranormal stories with Costa Rica Times. And you can go into topics and go into the paranormal section of it. And you'll see a lot of our stories. And just Google Costa Rica Times. And our website is www.cryptic916.com.
And you've contributed to a number of the books that we've published.
Oh yeah,
including
and there's a fantastic. I don't know if you heard about it, but there's a fantastic book out there called Area 51, and it's by Timothy Beckley.
Well,
it's a Bible.
We really worked hard on getting this out in time. Luckily, people say, "Well, how do you get a book together, so quickly?" Well, I've been doing this for close to 50 years, and I've got like 40 file cabinet drawers, and some of the greatest contributors in the world. And like today, we actually organized a book on Nikola Tesla, a new book that purports that he was not born here on this planet, that he came from somewhere else, and we'll have it out in a couple of days. Where most of the major publishers, it would take them a year and a half to get anything off the ground. But anyway, I wanted to tell our listeners.
Wow.
Tell our listeners.
That's amazing about the Tesla book. Yeah.
Indeed, yeah. We want to invite our listeners to go to our YouTube channel, Mr. UFO's Secret Files. I think we're up to about 400 interviews, and send us an email at mrufo8 at hotmail.com, and we'll put you on our newsletter mailing list. And of course, listen to KCORradio.com all day.
You've been listening to Exploring the Bizarre with hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz. They're taking back the night by jetting non-stop across the cosmos in search of the truly bizarre and totally unexplained, with you as their co-pilot. Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on Exploring the Bizarre and hosts Timothy Beckley and Tim Swartz, check out their KCOR Digital Radio Network page. Follow their YouTube channel at MRUFO 1100, Exploring the Bizarre.